Think darts is just a game of calm precision and good sportsmanship? Think again. From £20,000 fines to prison time, darts has seen some truly shocking player punishments. This isn't about missed doubles, it's about meltdowns, shoves, booze smuggling and rage-filled exits. But what happens when a player crosses the line again and again, and who paid the ultimate price for breaking the rules? If there's one name that flipped the darts world upside down in recent years, it's Gerwyn Price. In November of 2018, Price clinched his first ever PDC major title at the Grand Slam of Darts. A moment that should have been a career high, but instead, it became one of the sport's most controversial finals. Price was electric on stage, coming back from a 12-9 deficit to defeat Gary Anderson 16-13. But his wild, chest-thumping celebrations, prolonged roars, and in-your-face antics triggered chaos. Anderson accused him of slow play and gamesmanship. The two clashed not once, but twice, in the 15th and 28th legs, exchanging words and even shoves. There was no handshake after the match, just a trophy lift drowned in booze.
There was contact made and it was initiated by Price. I don't think there's too much doubt about that way. And he ignores the bear pit atmosphere to nail tops and lead by 2 to become the first Welsh winner of a PDC major in one of the most contentious and controversial finals you could ever wish to see.
But it wasn't just the final that landed Price in trouble. In his quarter-final against Simon Whitlock, he came back from 9-5 down, celebrated wildly again, and had to be calmed by referee Russ Bray. The Darts Regulation Authority launched a full investigation. The punishment? Devastating. Price was fined a total of £21,500, £8,000 for his behaviour against Whitlock, £12,000 for the final showdown with Anderson, £1,500 for inflammatory social media posts. He also received a suspended 3-month ban, meaning if he messed up again before July of 2019, he'd be kicked off the tour temporarily. Commentator Wayne Mardle summed it up best. It went beyond a darts match. It got ridiculous. Gerwyn Price pushes the buttons of other players, that's a fact. Price, however, didn't back down. "I don't think I deserve any fine at all," he told BBC Sport. "I've done nothing different than I always do. I'm just being me." After an appeal, the fines were cut in half, bringing the total down to £11,500. But the damage was done. Price had become a polarising figure, cheered by some, despised by many.
I don't care. I just want to keep winning. I mean, sometimes the crowd's with me, sometimes they're against me. I mean, I don't care.
And the DRA had made it clear, gamesmanship had a price. Adrian "Jackpot" Lewis was once hailed as the future of darts, a 2-time world champion by the age of 27, a prodigy mentored by Phil Taylor himself. But Lewis's fiery personality didn't just show in his throw, it exploded in controversy. Let's rewind to October of 2010 at the World Grand Prix in Dublin. Lewis was already making headlines for his talent, but this time it was for all the wrong reasons. Mid-match, Lewis erupted in a profanity-laced rant, all on live television. He had just been involved in an on-stage altercation with his opponent, and instead of calming down, he walked straight into more trouble. He repeatedly stepped into the exclusion zone, the area reserved for his opponent's throws, a clear case of deliberate gamesmanship. And if that wasn't enough, he later failed to fulfill his marking duty at a separate Players' Championship event. The Darts Regulation Authority acted swiftly. Lewis was found guilty on all counts and slapped with a £3,200 fine. There was no ban, but the message was loud and clear. Reputation didn't make you untouchable. Fast forward to February of 2018 and things got worse. During a UK Open qualifier, Lewis clashed with Spaniard Jose Justicia in a heated match. Words were exchanged, accusations flew, and then a shove. The situation escalated so quickly that security had to intervene.
Game shot. And there it is, Adrian Lewis has somehow found a way to win it, and he is still not letting it go, and they're having to separate these two. Adrian Lewis has somehow won that match, but is marred by some pretty ugly scenes that we do not want to see. Adrian Lewis through to the semi-finals. A superb run from Jose Perales is brought to an end.
After reviewing the footage, the DRA issued a 3-month suspended ban and fined Lewis £3,000. In his statement, Lewis apologised to the PDC, the sponsors and fans, saying he let frustration get the better of him. I should have reported the issue to tournament officials instead of confronting him. I lost control and I regret it deeply. While many hoped the punishment would serve as a wake-up call, it marked a turning point in his career. His world ranking began to slip. His appearances on the tour declined, and the man once poised to dominate darts found himself fighting for relevance. Adrian Lewis wasn't just punished, he became a cautionary tale, proof that even the brightest stars can fall hard and fast. Michael van Gerwen, the name alone sends chills down the spine of opponents, dominant, fearless and unshakably confident.
It's happened again! It's a second nine-yarder of the day in Hungary!
But even the sport's most decorated star hasn't been immune to disciplinary action. In 2017, during a Players' Championship event, Van Gerwen found himself at the centre of a rare controversy. The normally composed Dutchman was involved in an on-stage altercation that ended with another player colliding into a table. The incident, while brief, sent a clear message: even the best can lose their cool under pressure. The Darts Regulation Authority reviewed the case and fined Van Gerwen £500. He also received a formal warning, not for violence per se, but for instigating a moment that nearly turned physical. It might not sound like much, especially compared to the staggering sums handed to players like Gerwyn Price, but in darts, image matters. And for Van Gerwen, this was a crack in the armour. Yet what's interesting is how the incident played into a growing narrative. Van Gerwen was no longer just the green machine, he was starting to develop a reputation for arrogance. Cold handshakes, sharp dismissals in interviews, and icy stares on stage had turned fans and fellow players against him. The warning from the DRA only added fuel to that fire. Still, Van Gerwen remained unapologetic. He kept winning, kept dominating, and kept brushing off criticism with his trademark swagger. But that £500 fine, it wasn't about the money. It was a shot across the bow, a reminder that even icons must respect the line, or be reminded where it lies. Not every darts punishment happens on stage. Some of the wildest infractions take place behind the scenes or just outside the venue. Enter Roby John Rodriguez and the PDC's strict but often overlooked alcohol policy. Over the years, the Professional Darts Corporation has quietly dealt with a bizarre recurring issue: players smuggling alcohol into events. It became so common that some were caught disguising vodka in water bottles. The PDC's response? A clear escalation system. First offence, a £250 fine. Second, £500. Third, £1,000. Anything beyond that? Suspensions or bans. Rodriguez's case crossed the line in a different and much more public way. During one tournament, the Austrian player was caught urinating outside the venue, in full view of the public. It wasn't just embarrassing, it violated the PDC's code of conduct and brought the sport into disrepute. The punishment? A £1,000 fine, a 2-event suspension. The incident wasn't just about poor judgment, it highlighted how seriously the PDC takes its image, and how players, no matter their ranking, are held to professional standards on and off the board. Rodriguez later returned to competition and kept a low profile, but the moment stuck. It became a talking point across the darts community, not just because of what he did, but because it showed that the PDC isn't afraid to act, even when the cameras aren't rolling. Phil, the Power, Taylor, 15-time world champion, the greatest player in darts history, but even legends slip. And when Taylor did, the whole world saw it. In the 2007 World Darts Championship semi-final, Taylor defeated Raymond van Barneveld in a tense battle, but instead of celebrating, he exploded. Caught up in the emotion, Taylor let loose a string of foul language during his post-match interview, broadcast live to millions. Moments earlier, he'd clashed with Van Barneveld on stage, complaining about being grabbed around the neck in a heated embrace. Taylor called it disgraceful, admitted he reacted badly, and confessed that he swore at his opponent in the moment. In the aftermath, Taylor was visibly shaken. "I let myself down. I don't feel very well. I could just retire tomorrow night. I'm disillusioned."
In the final set, you won 3-1 in legs, so you clinched the match. And then what happened on stage?
Nothing happened. You know, I'm a bit under the weather. I'm a bit fragile. So Raymond's a big lad, and I just said, be careful. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, no animosity. That was it.
It looked like it, and it nearly looked like he sort of broke your shoulder or something like it.
No, he didn't. End of. Not going to answer any more questions on it. No comment.
No, because you are friends, aren't you?
Arjun, no comment.
He later apologised to fans, to Barney, and to the sport.
Obviously it'll never happen again. It just hurt me a little bit. I told him,
stop it, basically. I swore at him. So I've spoke to Raymond this morning, and I'm gutted. I really am. It's playing on my mind, it's upset a lot of people. I don't know what to do about it, really,
But the Darts Regulation Authority didn't let it slide. He was fined £400, a minor figure compared to modern fines, but a major statement at the time, especially for someone of his stature. The incident didn't define Taylor, but it did humanise him. For decades, he had been the unshakable face of darts. In that moment, he became something else. Emotional, vulnerable, and very, very real. And while he'd go on to win more titles, the image of the power-losing control was seared into the minds of fans everywhere. Because if even Phil Taylor can crack, anyone can. While most darts controversies stay within the bounds of the sport, Chris Mason's story goes far beyond missed doubles or aggressive celebrations. His punishment didn't come from the Darts Regulation Authority, it came from the British justice system. At the height of his career, Mason was one of the most recognisable faces in professional darts, talented, charismatic, and known for his sharp tongue. But behind the scenes, his life was unravelling. In the early 2000s, Mason was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The charges weren't directly related to darts, they stemmed from a prior conviction tied to criminal activity and personal chaos. The fallout was swift. Mason sold his businesses, disappeared from the spotlight, and found himself locked away with some of the most dangerous inmates in the UK. He later described his first night in prison as hell. Within 24 hours, there was a riot. Fires were set. He was locked in his cell as chaos unfolded around him. I just thought, I'm done. I might as well end it. Everyone's going to believe what's in the papers. But prison didn't break him. In fact, it saved him. Mason later credited a prison officer, a man named Dickie Knox, with turning his life around. He introduced Mason to structured routines, helped him rebuild his confidence, and even reignited his love for darts. Upon release, Mason made a limited return to the sport, but he also became a cautionary voice, often speaking candidly about mental health, addiction, and redemption. Unlike others on this list, Mason wasn't punished for behaviour on the stage, but his journey remains one of the most powerful, a reminder that sometimes the harshest consequences come from life itself, and sometimes the fight back is the most inspiring part of all. Professional darts may look like a calm contest of aim and nerves, but dig deeper and you'll find a world fueled by adrenaline, ego, and explosive pressure. So what's the takeaway? Punishments in darts aren't just about enforcing rules, they're about protecting the sport's integrity, and sometimes they're the wake-up call a player needs to change their path, or disappear from it entirely. But what happens when a player doesn't just misbehave, but vanishes completely? If you thought today's stories were intense, wait until you hear about the darts pro who went missing at his peak. No announcements, no farewell match, just silence.